Hello, Gemini. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. All right, Gemini. This one, immediately when I hit trickery, I was like, oh, why? It's such a blow. So, from Lay Vampire, love conquers all, enduring loyalty, eternal love, and lasting commitment. Just looking at those words and looking at trickery next to it, I worry a little bit for some of you. Now, with trickery, let me just say that I am not pointing the finger here. The very first quote for this says that the tempter is as guilty as the thief. So, this could be both ways. But then I also feel like some of you may have something that's coming back up in terms of love, and it's not exactly what it was supposed to be. Okay, so now love conquers all. We're talking about how love can be renewed, reignited, and enduring. Love is all there is. Give it a place of honor in your life, in your home, in your work, right? Love is a powerful thing. But when you're looking at it with trickery, it's like walking that fine line. Now, the card at a glance says, notice here that there may be manipulation because of fear of being rejected. Now, that could be you or somebody else. There is no evil intent, only a deep desire to be loved. This card may also indicate that you should practice asking for your true heart's desire rather than fearing someone else's resentment. I kind of feel like for some of you, I want to say, all right, Gemini, here is your overall for the week, the Eight of Pentacles. So, and it's funny because as I'm looking at these two, I'm thinking your reading's going to be about work. It's got to be about work, not about relationships. The Eight of Pentacles being the overall. We're talking about you needing to put in some hard work, or you may be working too hard. I mean, it's one or the other here. When I look at the Eight of Pentacles, I think of somebody who knows what they're doing. You're past the three. You've learned what you needed to. Now you're really refining that skill. But like I said, for some of you, it's either you're too focused on needing to make something work, or you're too focused on work, or you need to start putting in the effort here. But we'll see how this is playing out. Wowza. Okay. The Eight of Wands. The Eight of Wands is the past coming through. Things moving quickly. Hopefully things start falling into place. Communication, but fast. It's always fast when it comes to the Eight of Wands. Energy just moves quickly from one thing to the next. And for some of you, it's just work, busting your ass. And everything may feel like is just flying past you, though. Like, I don't get the feeling of things falling into place because, that it would be different if it were in the present or future conditions. But we're talking about the past. And you still at an 8 and like really focused on something. Oh boy. Yeah. So now, if we're talking about fast communication, talking about text, email, whatever, with the Knight of Pentacles, it's dragging ass. But then the other thing, though, too, is every time I see the Knight of Pentacles, I think of being cautious about what you say, being cautious about what you do. And for some of you, it's just you're like quickly trying to move into a different place in terms of work and finances, but things may be going slow. Now, the Knight of Pentacles, though, right, it could be, good messages coming through in terms of finances, though, too. But, again, methodical. He's so methodical and slow moving, but he knows that there is a certain way of doing things to get to the end result that he wants. That's why he's not considered to be the original thinker. But, it could be that for some of you, quickly moving into a situation where you're just busting your ass all the time and things just aren't moving forward. Oh boy. And it comes to like a complete stop. Now, if we're talking about work or relationships, you may have put like a lot of effort into something, but now it's just like, where things felt like they were moving really fast in the past, now everything's just like bleh. And then the Hangman, I almost wonder if you're doing something right now where you're having to put in a lot of effort, But at the same time, it's like you're waiting on something else, and it's like wanting things to hurry up, but they're really not right now. But you may be planning on doing something else. You may be waiting to hear something. It's not like a Three of Wands type of thing where I feel like, especially with the snake here, right? Like some of you may be bound to a work situation right now. You may be trying to plan something out, but you can't really move forward just yet. I don't think that this is about you stalling. I think it's more having to do with you feeling like you're bound to a situation or stuck with a situation, but then at the same time, it's like you're waiting for things to kind of open up, especially if you've been laying down plans to go somewhere else or start doing something else. But if we're talking about, dealing with people, and as far as like if we're looking at this in terms of relationships, it's just things aren't moving. Things are just not moving. Oh shit, your best path to follow, the Five of Swords. Let me just say this. If you're in a work situation right now where you feel like everything is cutthroat, basically with this being your best path to follow, you're going to have to stand up for yourself. Don't let somebody try to get one over on you, right? The hollow victory here, the Five of Swords. But the other thing is though too, be careful about what you get dragged into, though. I want to say you need to, keep the peace, especially if you're looking forward to something else. You may be in a situation where you're dealing with people who are shitty as hell. You may be dealing with extreme miscommunication in terms of work. But don't back down, but then at the same time, don't get caught up in the bullshit though either. It's like a fucking double-edged sword looking at this. The Five of Swords though, when you're looking at it in terms of advice, one of the things that comes up with this is, yeah, you may be dealing with assholes, but it's also saying that, you need to fight for yourself, right? You may need to stand up and fight. Don't back down. Me against the world mentality comes up with this too. But I think that you're being thrown into a situation where you have to deal with this type of energy. But then at the same time, I don't know, I get the feeling that you're moving somewhere else. It's just happening slowly and you may be stuck with this situation for now. Okay, in your environment, the Queen of Wands. Now, in terms of the Queen of Wands, for some of you, whether you're male or female, it could be about having to deal with possibly a manager, because I see that with her, or you wanting to move into a better position. If we're talking about work here. Now, if we're talking about a person that you're dealing with the Queen of Wands, fire, Aries, Leo, Sag, right? Possibly. You may be dealing with somebody who may be really quick with the way that they talk and the way that they act, but as far as following through on something, it's like they're procrastinating. Now, for some of you, you may just be dealing with a really shitty coworker or boss possibly here. When I see the Queen of Wands, I think of self-image. That's what's important to her. The way that she shows herself. But not really doing anything though. And for some of you, it may be that you're lacking the confidence to step up, and it's because you're in a cutthroat situation, looking at the Five of Swords. Wow, Gemini. But I'm still going back to that Eight of Wands and thinking, at one point things felt like they were moving along, but now somebody else may be holding up the show. But I still see you as planning something else out, and you're still bound to this whole nonsense, but still waiting. Hopes and fears, justice, wanting things to be fair and balanced, especially if you're dealing with shitty people. So yeah, it makes sense, right? But then also weighing out your options though too. because again, I can't get past that feeling. Some of you are stuck with something that you're having to work on now, but then your focus is also somewhere else. Things are moving slowly. They're not picking up pace like you had hoped it would. And it may be that you need to get moving a little bit more though too, and start acting toward, what you're wanting to do rather than being stuck with this, But, again, with justice, right, needing that fairness out of a situation though too. And I don't so much that it's you needing to correct anything, because, with justice, right, it's accountability, being accountable for your actions. But, with it being hopes and fears, and then looking at this, I think it's because of you dealing with other people. And then coming out the Four of Cups. Now I worry about that a little bit. So when we're looking at the Four of Cups again, it's dissatisfaction, and then there's disappointment, and I go back to the past. Things may have been picking up speed, but they falter and things aren't, good enough, and there's disappointment there, absolutely. Now, with the Queen of Swords, again, I'm telling you, I don't think that, especially if you're dealing with a hostile work environment here, that you're backing down, because no way. There's just no way. And you may shut off the way that you're feeling emotionally, but I would say you have to be careful, though, about what you say to others, though, too, because, again, I go back to that feeling of accountability. Somebody needs to be held accountable for what they've done, with this being here especially. But then with judgment, this may be really you getting that calling that maybe you shouldn't be doing this anymore. And now is the time for you to start picking up speed and acting toward working on something else, because I feel both with this. I feel like you're dealing with a shitty person, especially in terms of work. Then I also feel like, looking at the two connected, if we're talking about you needing to make plans and start moving on that, it's really about a lack of confidence in doing this. But with judgment, right, hearing that call, hearing the calling, hearing your true calling, and stop being in this limbo state with something that just is not making you happy with the Four of Cups. And I do think that for some of you, this is going to be definitely a work situation here. But, it's you finally, everything gets blasted away with judgment, and you finally get it. And you just kind of make amends with the situation. It is what it is. Now I'm going to start really moving, hopefully, because, I'm going back to the past here with judgment. But it's only because, you're not getting what you want right now, looking at the Four of Cups coming out. But you're not really seeing anything else, though, either, with the Hangman, And like I said, for some of you, you may see something come through, but it may not be good enough, and you may still be in that limbo state. But, eventually you're going to be forced here to do something, really needing to do something. So with honeymoon and looking at the Ten of Wands, first of all, when I look at the Ten of Wands, traditionally you think of being overwhelmed. Well, if you're overwhelmed, you may be letting off some steam here, or it's possibly, and I feel like this with both of you, whether we're talking about singles or couples, getting back together with somebody, but releasing all those, burdens and pressures, and just, some of you, maybe trying to get back together with somebody, them, you. But when I look at this one, I feel like two people who are just looking to each other to relieve pressure, or to relieve stress. Now, for some of you, could literally be going out on holiday and finding somebody to just relieve the pressure. I mean, straight up, right? Now, for the... oh my God, these get so interesting sometimes. For those of you who are in a relationship, make the effort, right? And then you have the Three of Cups. This, to me, besides the Nine of Swords in that deck, is the makeup. This is the makeup sex, right? Making up with each other, but feeling really emotional, feeling really good. It's really happy. The Nine of Swords is a little bit different. There's a reason why they call that the nightmare card. This is better. This is better. But you're being asked to make the effort here. The Three of Cups is about, mending the broken heart, right? And coming back together. But it's good. But Gemini, it's funny because I'm looking at love conquers all and trickery. So now for some of you, if something is being reignited in you, something that you love to work on, something that you would love to do, you may be in a spot right now where you feel like you're being tricked to continue working at something that clearly is not making you happy. All right, Gemini. So, looking at this reading and then going back to these two, I do think that for some of you, it's getting back to what you love and not allowing yourself to be in these types of situations where there's manipulation going on. Because I'm sorry, I can't help it with this being your best path to follow. Because you're looking at the Eight of Pentacles, it's really about how much hard work you're putting into something that's not making you happy here. And I think it's interesting that for you, I get more practical things, work situations, than I do anything else, it seems like. Now, at one point in the past here, it felt like things were moving in the right direction, I feel like. But then I also think that the reason why you're pulling on this is because right now things may have completely, and I mean completely, slowed down. And then the other thing though too is with the Hangman, some of you may be waiting to do something else, but I still feel like some of you are bound to this. Like you're bound to a situation because, it's financially stable, right? But I think that there's something else that you want to be doing. And I think that there's like a lack of confidence for some of you when it comes to like actually moving forward on plans. And again, like with the Queen of Wands being in the environment, I do think that for some of you, it's needing to like move up or step up, right? Because I see her more so as a manager, being a little bit more confident in yourself and being able to manage what's going on, but then also needing to like stop procrastinating though too. Now, if we're talking about a person in your environment, they may be like putting the brakes on and making you feel like you can't stop. You have to continue doing this work. Now, and again, with the Five of Swords, right, dealing with somebody who is, with trickery, yeah. But maybe dealing with somebody who is like trying to keep you where they want you, but I still see this as your advice being that you can't back down. You have to fight for yourself and fight for what you really want to do rather than busting your ass all the time and then not being happy. And then I look at justice and I think somebody needs to be held accountable, but you're hoping for this, but, can you accept that you may not actually get this out of this situation? But then again, like weighing out what your options are before you do anything. But you're not really doing anything. And you continue to put in a lot of hard work into something that I'm telling you is not making you happy. With these two, it may have felt like at one point things were going in the right direction, but with the Five of Cups, I see disappointment. But then also, if you're talking about waiting on other offers, with the Hangman being there may be disappointment in terms of that though too. But, like, I see you standing up for yourself with the Queen of Swords, absolutely. But then with Judgment coming out, I think for some of you, it's like getting that blast and understanding that I shouldn't be working on this anymore if it's not making me happy. And then hearing the calling, to do something else, to do what you want to do what you love, right? But like, I feel like you just kind of like make amends with it, regardless of the fact that you may not get any fairness and balance out of what you're doing or having somebody make amends for what they have done. Because I don't feel like that's you. We're talking about your hopes and fears, right? But like I said, with the Queen of Swords, it's almost like you cut out those emotions and you move into a place where, I'm not going to allow myself to stay in that space, but not really doing anything. And then, it's needing to get that wake-up call. I mean, big time, right? So you're not in that state of limbo anymore, not really knowing what to do and continuing to put in a lot of effort into bullshit. And it's frustrating for me, but like, I understand sometimes, and this isn't an Eight of Cups situation here. This is more about money, security, and stability, right? And needing to put in a lot of hard work to get that, but then not really being happy, and it's frustrating to me because I know what that's like, not being happy with the job that you're doing. And again, this is only going to be for some of you. But I do like that judgment is coming out on this. Because even if you're not seeing the offers that you want, it's like realizing that all of this is happening for a reason, and, being able to walk away from it with a clean slate and then moving on to something that you love. Now, in terms of relationships, Gemini, you guys crack me up. Some of the shit you pull. Honeymoon and the Ten of Wands. Ten of Wands is releasing burdens. And for some of you, like literally going on holiday, and maybe, this isn't a Knight of Wands type of thing, just like needing to hook up to release some pressure, possibly. Now, for some of you, you could be getting back together with somebody and enjoying some time with them and relieving all the burdens, which is very possible. Now, for those of you who are in a relationship, make the effort and the Three of Cups. I think some of you may be getting back together with somebody, but you're needing to make the effort here. But with the Three of Cups being there, it's really good. It's the mending of a broken heart, but it's not the Nine of Swords. It's like coming back together and having that makeup sex, and it's great. You're happy. There's emotions there, right? But as far as your work situation goes, my God, I do think that, you're going to have to start picking up the pace here. But then I also feel like it's going to have to do with your confidence, though, too. You need to get your confidence level up enough to say, I don't have to keep doing this anymore. I'm going to start working on what I want to do.